presentation of Southeast Missouri's ESPN Radio Sports Network. It's time for the Redhawks Coaches Show, live from Wings, etc. Hear the Coaches Show every Monday at noon on SEMO ESPN 1220 and at 93.5 FM. Also at SEMOESPN.com and the SEMO ESPN app. Plus also watch the Redhawks Coaches Show webcast live at SEMOESPN.com. Now,
somebody go live.
Let's go live to Wings, etc. for the Redhawks Coaches Show.
Welcome in, the Redhawks Coaches Show from Wings, etc., a rare Tuesday edition. So if you did not know, we were having a coaches show today. We invite you to stop by for lunch, and you can check out their half-pound lunch specials at Wings, etc., just $7.99, and that is every day. And remember, Wings, etc. is open 7 days a week, late on the weekends. You can enjoy their award-winning jumbo wings. I know Coach Brad Korn just ordered some wings, so if they're good enough for Coach Korn, they're good enough for all of us. And check out their entire menu. If you're not in the mood for wings, they have freshly made burgers, wraps, subs, quesadillas, entree salads. They have smoked ribs and much more. And you can check out their appetizer lineup as well. Their ultimate nachos is a fan favorite, and their brand new spicy deep-fried pickle chips on the menu as well here at Wings, etc. Home of the Coaches Show, good food, great time, Wings, etc. We're going to be talking with head coach Brad Korn. Assistant coach Sam McMahon is going to join us as well a little bit later on in the show. And let's welcome in the Redhawks head basketball coach, Brad Korn. All the snow and weather that we got, and you had one game pushed back because of the weather. And now we've got a beautiful day. I mean, I think we're pushing 60 degrees. Snow's starting to melt. Things are starting to get back to normal.
Yeah, it's kind of get a little bit spring fever going. And that time of year too, March. Yeah, March Madness right around the corner. So it's a great time. Especially for us. And we've put ourselves in the conversation for postseason play, and that's what we set. One of our goals that we set out to do. And now with 2 to go, we've put ourselves in position, and now we got to see what we can do and finish it off. But I think that's what. You start to get those feelings. The weather's changed. You're just starting to get excited. I think our guys are up for the challenge and looking forward to the opportunity, and we are as well as coaches. So it's that time of year.
If I told you going into these last 3 games, before you even played a game, that you've got Austin Peay with the best player in the league and Terry Taylor, the leading scorer and rebounder, a team that had beaten you already in Clarksville. Then you've got Eastern Kentucky, who's off to their best start in 74 years. They had an 18-5 record, and they were coming in here. And you've got back-to-back with Eastern Kentucky. And these are all teams vying for high seeds in the OVC tournament. If before it happened, I told you could go 2-1 in those 3 games, would you have taken it before you even played a game?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think probably it's been the roller coaster of the season. You go to Austin Peay, we got kicked pretty good, and then you come back and beat them in a game that we had to come back, and obviously in overtime and all that. So, and then you go and you play the best that I think that we've played. I don't know if we could have played any better against EKU on Saturday, and then you follow that up and they flip the script on us. So it's been the highs and the lows of this whole season. But again, our guys have been so resilient all year long. They've played with tremendous determination and grit. So I'd have took it 2-1. You always want to go 3-0. You're not, you don't want to give any game away. But you'd have took that on the surface if you'd have told me that, before we played those games. But again, I'm not surprised either because of our guys and their mentality and the way that they've approached this all season long.
I want to talk about all 3 games. The first game you played was Austin Peay. We'll save that one because everyone's still buzzing about what happened Saturday night at the Show Me Center. You beat Eastern Kentucky 94-72, and this is a team that really has played so well. I mean, they've got some quality wins. They are number 1 in the nation in steals, second in creating turnovers. They're the 10th highest scoring offense in all of college basketball. They are a tremendous three-point shooting team. They have all the ingredients. Going into that game, what was the mentality and what was your game plan? What were you highlighting before you got on the floor with Eastern Kentucky?
I before the game we always pick out about 4 things. I use a little acronym of SEMO in each letter and try to put something in with the game that goes with that. And the very first thing with the S was savvy and smarts, against their press. We had to take care of the basketball. And then the next thing was everything. Everything matters. Details. Long shots equal long rebounds, and you can't let it come down to one possession where we don't block out or turnovers. Everything matters. And then the moment for M was moment. This was a moment for us that we gotta, you gotta capture it, you gotta take it, you gotta do something with it. And then last one was to take ownership for the O, and it just was the ownership of our program, ownership of what we can control, and to just do it. There really isn't anything left but to do that. And to me, the thing was, we stayed calm, even though we had 23. I think it was 23 turnovers in that first game with them, and we had less turnovers the second time, which you wouldn't have thought with the score. So basketball is a funny game that way. But I thought that we did really good things against the press. It never really bothered us, and I think that's why we were able to score so many points. We were able to break the press, and then we were able to play 4-on-3 once we got it across because they were in the backcourt. And I think that's really what got us going in that first game on Saturday. And guys made shots. We shoot 52% or whatever it was, and you had 3 guys with 6+ assists in that game. Threes were going in, and it just was a perfect game for us.
A lot of unique things that happened in that game. One thing that I think is amazing to me is a game where you have 20 turnovers and win by 20 points. Now, how often does that happen in basketball?
Yeah, and then we had fewer turnovers
right.
Yesterday. And so it's just like, well, if you had fewer, you wouldn't have thought the score would have been that either. But if you'd have told me before the game, hey, you're going to have 23 turnovers, I'd be like, oh boy, this is not going to end well.
We're in trouble.
Yeah, because of the way that they play. So again, it was one of those weird games to where it's like we turned it over, but it wasn't against the press, and it wasn't live ball turnovers to where they were able to get on runs, and we couldn't match back up with them. So that was another point of focus, was to not have live ball turnovers. The pick six, to use a football analogy, you can't do that against them. And again, just talking with AW before their Coach Hamilton, before the game, the first time and even yesterday, he just was so complimentary. He just talked about how they went back and watched the game again twice. He did personally, just to see the way our guys were acting and our bench, and just he was like, man, what you've done here is incredible. And we used to always come over here and think we'll just come and get a win. And so what we did Saturday, they obviously woke up by that and came and played a totally different style. I shouldn't say a totally different style, but they game planned differently than they did the first time because we got their attention.
And for those who didn't know going into the game, I mean, they want to get it up and down the floor. They want to shoot a lot of threes, and they want to press. On the back of their warm-up shirts, it says the most exciting 40 minutes in sports. Now, that's a little takeoff on Nolan Richardson's Arkansas Razorbacks, 40 minutes of hell. Mm-hmm. I mean, so for 40 minutes, they're going to be in your faces, basically what they're saying, and they're going to run an exciting brand of basketball. Did you do anything different to prepare for their press versus maybe some other teams that you played?
We just did a little bit more of what we normally do. So we didn't really put anything in. We talked about another press breaker if we were having trouble, so we had that in our back pocket. But we just did a little bit more of what we typically do for teams that press. And we actually do a drill every single day, or almost every day in practice anyway, that emulates getting open versus press, handling pressure. So we just, in our breakdown drills and everything like that, we just did it a little bit more than we typically would have leading up to that game.
So you go 7 of 12 from three-point range in the first half, and you're up by 26 points at halftime. Were you surprised of how well you shot the ball in the first half?
I don't think surprise is the word. I was relieved. I was happy because we got the right looks, and they went in. Chris Harris shot the ball, and Nana was making shots, and Eric Reid we know can make shots. So the ball was just moving the right way. And anytime you do that, and our guys were so ready to go. They were so locked in. Again, I don't know if we could have played any better than we did other than turnovers and rebounds. I wasn't surprised. We've talked about our shooting all year long, and I'm not really surprised when shots go in for us. Again, as long as they're the right shots. And we handled the press the right way. And so now when we got it into the front court, it was easier for us because there was a lot more space. And so now anytime that there's space and we're not over-dribbling, we use the pass way more than we use the dribble, good things will happen.
And this is a team that averages 83 points per game. I mentioned they're the 10th highest scoring team in college basketball. What did you do so well defensively that they only scored 24 points in the first half of that game?
Again, I think it was us being able to handle the press. It didn't rattle us. It didn't get them going. I don't want to say that they were starstruck or took back by anything that we did, but they just weren't able to move the way that they're accustomed to moving. And so when it wasn't working for them, kind of how, to flip it in the second game, it wasn't working for us, and we didn't respond particularly well. I don't think they did, because we took care of the basketball against the press, and then now anytime you're making those types of shots, it's like, well, wait a second, what's happening here? And so now when you shut them out, they can't press when you miss. And so our defense really stopped. Not only did we handle the press when they were able to press, we shut them out on the defensive side of the ball, which didn't allow them to set up the press. And so I think it was a combination of those two things, which ultimately led to us having a very, very successful night.
What I think was interesting is you took advantage of the turnovers that you forced, because they only turned it over 13 times. You turned it over 23 times, but points off turnovers were even. 19. So you got 19 points off their 13 turnovers. It's one thing to force a turnover. What are you going to do with it? Well, you were scoring off their turnovers.
Yeah, and that's huge for us. And it's, you scored 94 points, and we did not run one play in that game. And again, we were doing what we were supposed to do defensively, which got us in transition. We handled the press and then broke it and just played. The ball was moving the right way, and we didn't have to call plays. And the way that they play their style, it doesn't allow you to do that. And so credit to our guys, again, for understanding the game plan defensively and executing that and frustrating them, and then also being able to handle their press and in the half court of moving the ball without having to be told exactly what to do every single time.
Eric Reid had a really good week. He was instrumental in the win over Austin Peay. He had a big game Saturday. Eric Reid finishing with 16 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and a steal. And yesterday was named OVC Newcomer of the Week. It's your first conference award all season, but Eric Reid, Newcomer of the Week, and man, he earned it, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, and he's earned it all year long. Eric Reid is that kid. We talked about it after the game. One of the post games I talked about, if we called a practice at 2 a.m., Eric would be one of the first guys there. He'd go as hard as anybody. He plays both sides of the ball. He's selfless. He's tough. So I'm really happy and proud of him to be able to do that, because he hit that little bit of that wall, whatever it was, a week or so or two ago.
Right.
Just hit that wall and just had a little bit of a slump. But again, because he does everything the way that he does, the way he approaches it, how hard he goes every single day in practice, I just knew it wasn't going to last long. Everybody goes through those little spells or a week or two throughout a season, especially a newcomer. So you knew he was going to bounce out of it and bounce back. And we're obviously a different team with him playing the way that he can play.
And there aren't a whole lot of people. Maybe Jeff Hansa is the guy that gets there to the Show Me Center before I do. But I'm there ahead of a lot of people. And Eric Reid, always one of the first guys out of the locker room. He's out there getting up shots. He's out there working on things. What does that say about Eric Reid? He's always the first guy out there.
It speaks to him getting that award, the recognition, because you don't show up and get those types of things. All of our guys, anytime you put extra time into the gym, it's going to pay off for you. Now, you got to stick with it, because if you don't have immediate results, what are you going to do? You're just going to stop because you didn't get that immediate result. So you got to give Eric Reid a ton of credit. But again, I think he helps. Now the next step for him is bringing someone else with him now. Now that becomes who we are and what we're doing and our identity and how we approach things. But Eric has that ability. He's starting to become more and more vocal as well. He's the defensive schemes, everything that we talk about, our verbiage, our vocabulary, he's picking up on now. And if there ever was a positive to this whole COVID situation, it's a guy like Eric Reid and Nate Johnson coming from the junior college ranks to be able to get that quote-unquote redshirt year. To think that you're going to be able to have Eric Reid for 3 years that's huge.
Chris Harris, you talked about going through a little bit of a slump with Eric Reid, and now he's past it and playing his best basketball. Chris Harris was going through a slump, Coach. There were 2 games where I think he was combined like 1 for 15. He had an 0 for, and it just looked like he wasn't confident in his shot, and it maybe had lost a little confidence. How big was it for Chris Harris to have a big game against Eastern Kentucky? Because I'm sure you saw it just like the rest of us saw it. Sometimes guys slump. Even Ted Williams, one of the greatest baseball players, he went through slumps. That's just the way that it goes. Michael Jordan went through slumps. What did you see from Chris Harris when he was slumping, and what did you see when he bounced out of it?
I saw him get into the gym You know, he went to Coach Pick and said, hey, let's go get some extra shots. You know, Coach Pick would go grab them. For about a week there, they were shooting extra outside of our regular time. And, again, a testament to our guys, because a lot of guys may not have that approach or that mental approach. You know, they'll just say, I'll just get out of it during the game, or I'll just shoot a couple more after practice. But he went that extra step and said, no, I'm going to do X, Y, Z outside of it to get myself going. And again, it's no secret when you do those things, just in basketball, life, whatever the case may be. But I think for Chris, I think he not only a little bit of a slump, but you get frustrated. And for him, when you sit out a year ago due to injury, and you come back and things were going well for him early, you know, he's making a bunch of shots and playing well, leading scorer, this, that, and the other. Everything's kind of, I don't want to say easy, but it's moving easier. Now as you go and there's more film and the scouting reports and everyone's sitting on you and they're putting their best defender on you, now you got to be able to get to that second gear. You know, I think that he found that, and as we got going after P and obviously on Saturday, because Chris can do a lot of different things. You know, he can play make, he can pass, he obviously can make shots, and so we put a lot on his plate. And coming into a year that he was sat out, and then now you're at the top of the scouting report, it can wear on you, and I think it wore on him. You know, and we didn't have enough to be able to maybe get him out of that. You know, there were too many guys maybe struggling at the same time to where it felt like, okay, I got to do everything myself. And it's like, no, you don't. You know, now with Eric Reid stepping up, DQ playing really well of late, I think it kind of helped and slowed some things back down for him.
Nigel Russell is a guard, and most guards are expected to have a three-point shot in their arsenal. Nigel Russell hit 2 threes in your opening game in the final minute, which basically won the basketball game for you. Mm-hmm. He's only hit 4 since that opening game. His percentage is probably not where he wants it to be, but it really hasn't affected a whole lot of what we see from Nigel Russell. I mean, he finds other ways. Here's a guy that's, you know, shoot. I'm not seeing him just going out there jacking three-pointers. I'm going to get my shot right. 6 for 6 from the field in the game against Eastern Kentucky. He finds other ways to contribute, and we know as a guard how good of a rebounder he is.
Yeah, and he can do that. You know, and actually a year ago when you first got here, he was the leading three-point percentage guy on our team. You know, coming back for this season, I think it was 42% that he shot a year ago in conference. So on the surface, you're like, okay, you got a 42% three-point shooter, and then again, first game of the year, he's making threes, and he hit that little bit of that slump, and we had talked about it before, and then he just was, you know, you got to give our guys a ton of credit for staying resilient, sticking with it, and he's just like, what can I do to help the team? You know, he was just kind of at that point, and I was just like, hey, there's a lot of other things, as you mentioned, that you can do to affect the game, and I think he finally just forgot about worrying if I'm going to make or miss shots. Here's what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to get to the foul line. I'm going to play great defense. I'm going to crash the, you know, offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds, slash in the half court. And he's been able to do that, and he's had success in the last couple games. And, you know, he comes in the gym at night and shoots. It just hasn't gone in the games for him just yet. So, again, as long as he continues to put in the work, it's one of those things. It's like if you worry about the one thing you can't do and you don't focus on the 5 things that you do well, well, now you're not doing anything well. So I think he finally just said, okay, well, that's not working for me right now. Let me focus on these 3 things I know I can do every single night. And I'll still work on this, but I'm going to do these things. And then I think that's why he's able to have success.
You know, another baseball analogy, sometimes when a guy is slumping at the plate, they can take that into the field, and all of a sudden, a good defensive player, all of a sudden they take their at-bats out to the field, and then, you know, now they're really in a funk. That wasn't the way with Nigel Russell, though. I mean, it very easily could have affected other parts of his game, but we didn't see that, right?
Yeah, and I think that he probably a couple weeks prior it was just mentally just messing with you because you want to play well. Yep. You know, who wants to play poorly? You know what I mean? So I think that he probably was going through that in his own head, and then, you know, when you focus on the things that you know you can control and then have success, it makes everything else feel that much better. You start to feel better about yourself. You start to feel more engaged. As the game's going on, even when you're not in. And I you know, to his credit, he was able to bounce back and do that for us.
So DQ Nicholas, 10 rebounds in the game Saturday against Eastern Kentucky. And he's been putting up games with 8, 7, 9 rebounds. Now he's double figures in rebounds. He's a small guy. He's a point guard. Why is he such a good rebounder?
He is obviously he's an explosive athlete. He's very good up and down. You know, he can.
Well, there are lots of guys that are great athletes, but it doesn't mean they can rebound the ball, right?
Yeah, it's a knack. You know, for sure. You look at all the great rebounders in NBA history. You know, it's not always just the 7-footer, Charles Barkley, Dennis Rodman. Those weren't the biggest guys. They just had a knack for the ball. So I think he's got a little bit of a knack for the ball. And for us, it's huge because we talked about at the very beginning of the year that we were going to be somewhat small and, you know, is rebounding going to be an issue? And we've actually rebounded the ball pretty well all season long. And, you know, that's a testament to our guys. Nana rebounded the ball extremely well yesterday to start the game. I think he had our first 5 or 6 rebounds. But just DQ is, I think he knows, he's starting to understand that. We talk about doing little guy stuff. You know, when you're a little guy, you have to do little guy stuff. You have to defend the ball. You got to dig out 50-50 balls. You know, all those little guy stuff. And if you can add rebounding to that, you know, I worked with a guy at K-State who played at Illinois, Chester Frazier, who's now an assistant at Virginia Tech. One of his years, I believe he was the leading rebounder on his team at the point guard position. And it's, you know, the big guys are down there battling, trying to move guys out. And if you just sit there and wait for them to get it and then throw it to you to get in transition, well, you know, the faster you can get it in your hands and get it up the floor, the faster we can be, more scoring opportunities, all those things. You know, and DQ can push the ball, and we always talk about trying to get the ball below the free throw line to flatten out the defense, and now it can go inside out. And when he rebounds and can push or advance the ball with a pass, you know, that just only helps our team.
Boy, it can really help out when you have guards that can rebound, especially a point guard. Last year, Belmont's point guard led the nation in rebounding as far as point guards go, and I think he's like top 3 in the nation point guard rebounding this year. I mean, you know, we think about Belmont, oh, they're a great three-point shooting team. They run their system. They got a point guard that's the best rebounding point guard in college basketball.
Yeah, and people notice that. You know, you look at his statistics, they're not crazy. I believe a year ago, I'm not quite sure what it is now, but a year ago it was like 9, 7, 6 were his averages, his numbers, assists, rebounds, and points. And it's like, and he's first team all league, and his team wins. And so it's like I think so many young people get caught up in, I got to score. There's a bunch of different things that you can do to affect the game, and actually rebounding is the only thing that you can do on every single possession. You know, you can't dribble on defense. You know, you can't pass on defense. You can rebound on defense and you can rebound on offense. It's really the only statistical category that you can do on both sides of the ball.
So let's go back to the Austin Peay game here. You beat them in overtime. First of all, what were your thoughts when you fell down 13 points and they were just everything they were doing seemed like it was right? You're down by 13 points. What's your message to the team at that point?
At that point, it's just to stay with it. Again, we talk a lot about just playing in segments. You know, you can't worry about what happened before. You can't worry about what's going to happen just right now. All right, this next media timeout. Let's just play this 3-minute game and see what happens. Let's chip this thing down to 8. Let's chip it down to 4. Let's chip it down to 2. And so that's always, and even last night, that was the message. It's like, hey, when it got to 17, it's like, hey, let's just get this thing to 12. You know, now we come back, regroup. Now we'll try to get it to 7. And then now you can make it a ball game. And so that's just the message to the guys is, you know, sometimes you just start worrying about so much that had happened prior to that didn't go your way, that if you're focusing on that, well, then you're going to mess up what's to come. And so it's just the message is just, all right, 0-0, clear your mind, let's dominate this segment. And we were able to do that. We chipped away, cut it to 8. I mean, we're down 7 with 7 to go, and it's like it's still not looking great. But you just keep hanging in there. You just keep hanging in there, and we've done that all year long, Eric.
And then you're in the final 10 seconds of the game. You're down by 3, and you're going to have to get a 3 to tie the game. I mean, you know, everyone always says, now you don't need a 3. Let's get a quick 2 and a foul. And I mean, that almost never works out. I mean, when you need a 3, you need a 3. Of all the guys to step up and hit the 3, Darius Agnew, they gave it to him. I mean, he was out there. First of all,
he's open twice almost.
First of all, did you think that he was going to shoot it, or did you think he was going to pass it up? And secondly, when it left his hands, what were you thinking?
I thought, actually, when he caught it the first time, I thought he was going to shoot that one. And then when he dribbled, I was like, well, what's he going to do? Then I thought he was going to pass because now you've missed that opportunity, I thought. And then when he let it go, I just was like, you know what? Why not? Just let it rip, Agnew. You know, you got to give him a lot of credit. Again, I keep saying that about our guys, but he has stayed after practice and shot. Again, early in the year, he was dealing with some injuries again. He had a death in his family around the Belmont game, and he has stuck with it. He's kept a great attitude. He shoots all the time with the coaches after. He shoots with Evan Morrison all the time. They play a little game where they do shoot threes. So it's just, again, I'm not really surprised. I was surprised in the moment because you didn't think that was going to be the guy. But if you think about it, too, late game situations, well, people are obviously going to sit on Chris Harrison. They're going to sit on Eric Reid. And so someone's got to step up and make a play. And hopefully if you have a good enough team, if you have good enough players, a guy like Darius Agnew can step up and rise up to the occasion and make the shot, and he did that.
No one is going to say that Darius Agnew is a shooter. He's an old throwback. I mean, he's a guy. He's a back to the basket,
old
back
school
you
kind of
down.
power
Yes.
forward type.
You don't
guy,
see guys that do that very often. So you're not going to confuse him with being a shooter. But on that play, I mean, he looked down at the three-point arc, stepped back. That's what shooters do. And I was like, man, it looked like Eric Reid right there.
Well, if you asked him, he would tell you he's Eric Reid. You know, it's kind of like those all the big guys think they're point guards, and all the point guards want to be big guys. But you know, the one thing I will say about him in that game, Eric, is he played phenomenal defense. He's got great feet, and he really did a nice job on Terry Taylor. You know, he contested him, and Dylan Branson did a fantastic job. You know, you can't just guard him with one guy. And so Nana, Dylan, him, Nigel got a little bit of that. But he really moved his feet well, and during timeouts, he's like, hey, put me on him. I can guard him. I'll guard him. And he did. He did a really good job. He made things difficult for him on the defensive side of the ball, which is, again, a big reason why we were able to come back.
Did it help you that you had just played against Terry Taylor in Clarksville? You got to see him up close, and in that game, he did anything that he wanted to do, absolutely anything he wanted to do. Did it help that you had just played against him?
I think it helped us late because if you remember, they tried to go to him the last 4 possessions of the game, and they turned it over. And so I think it helped our guys with the knowing they do a bunch of overload plays for him, and you know they're trying to throw it over the top. One went off his leg, one went off the backboard. So in the late game situation, you knew the ball was going to him, and I think our guys, again, Dylan, Darius, they did an excellent job of defending that because they knew, because we had just seen it. So I do think that helps, and obviously we would walk through it and talk through it just in our regular game prep. But when it's that fresh in your mind, just as a basketball player, instinctively, you kind of know what's coming and where the ball is going to go, and you get a feel for that. And I think it definitely helped in those situations, particularly because at the end it was I believe it was 4 turnovers they had late in the game.
You can pick 3 or 4 different plays where you can say that's the biggest play of the game. That's the biggest play of the game in the Austin Peay game. Obviously, you don't get overtime if Agnew doesn't hit the shot. But I thought just a monster play in the game was when they tried to throw it to him. Paez, who's a really good point guard, he throws it up. It ends up hitting the backboard. You don't see that guy make mistakes very often. And not only did you defend that play, but then Nigel gets the ball, takes it down, throws it down for a dunk. I was worried that they were going to call him for hanging on the rim. I think you were too. I ran out.
You
ran out to call a timeout.
Yeah, just so they wouldn't.
Right.
Yes.
I saw that you wanted to get a timeout quick, get their mind off it. Hey, there was no hanging on the rim. But I thought that was such a key play in the basketball game, and for a rookie coach to come out and see that, hey, we can't have a technical foul call here. I mean, take me through that.
After all our games, Eric, I don't know if I can be considered a rookie coach. I don't have any gray hairs yet, but we've been in so many of these games that I think feels like we've gone through about 3 seasons. But I saw that at first I thought that he maybe should have just dribbled it out and got fouled. But again, only if you're a very good free throw shooter. If our team is a good free throw shooting team, you feel a little bit more confident in that. So my first thought was just dribble it out and make them foul us. But we're only up 1, so take the points. So he did that, and then I see him hanging. You never know what's going to happen.
Sure.
You know, and so I saw that, and I just jumped out there right away to try to call timeout. So now they see me, and they call timeout. They forget that maybe he was hanging on the rim, and then he pointed up. He was pointing, and I thought he was pointing at Nile. I'm just thinking, this can't happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We can't just – a huge momentum swing. That can't happen. But he was talking about the clock. I guess the clock ran, so he wasn't worried about Nigel necessarily.
Well, they went and looked at the monitors like 3 times in that game late.
So but that was my whole thing. Is like, and we forget which game it was. It might have been Tennessee State, the double overtime, and we went up 4 with 2 seconds, and I called timeout. And it's like, well, why would you call timeout? You're up 4, game's over. It's like, no, it's not. You know, we've had so many scenarios happen this year. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew what to do, because the only way that anything crazy can happen is if you foul. And so it's just kind of those things were going through my mind of just like, I just want to make sure everyone is on the same page, and we just the one thing that we would talk about after the game of how in the world did you lose that game? We got to make sure that doesn't happen. And so I was just thinking to myself, this cannot happen. We cannot get it technical right here. Because you just never know what they're going to. Any guy could see it and call it and get caught up in the moment himself, as an official. So that was what was going through my mind.
Did it shock you that Paez threw that pass?
You know, if I'm not mistaken,
I know they're trying to get him the ball, but I mean, it was just like, where did that come from?
Well, I think DQ and Eric Reid did a phenomenal job of just working him and frustrating him, because in that game he had 8 turnovers in that game. You know, he had 8 assists, but he had 8 turnovers, and so if you can get him to turn the basketball over 8 times, you're doing something. And again, maybe to your point, a fresh game, knowing that he's a lot of times making those passes, our guys are a little bit more cognizant of that and having better hand pressure, maybe played a part into that. But to turn him over 8 times, I mean, that obviously was huge.
When you watch Austin Peay on film, do you see sometimes that they make mistakes because they try too hard to get Taylor the ball?
And I think sometimes, too, he's such a good player and he's such a hard matchup that maybe sometimes they, too, I see, and I just was watching the Eastern Illinois game before I came over here. It's like sometimes you just assume that it's Terry. You can just throw it anywhere and he'll just go get it. So I think maybe sometimes that plays into it, too, because it's just like, well, even though that guy's standing there, it's Terry Taylor. He's going to catch it, so I'll just throw it up there. And so I think maybe you get a little bit of that from guard play as well. So
in watching Terry Taylor, you've seen every one of their games on film, and then you've seen him twice up close and personal. He's only 6'5". Last year, I don't think there was one player in college basketball that led their conference in scoring and rebounding, and he's doing it 2 years in a row. Can he make it at the NBA level? Do you think he's an NBA player potentially?
I think when you have the attributes and the knack for the ball and the things that you can't necessarily teach, the way he just grabs rebounds out of the air, and probably the best compliment that I can give him is, obviously you know who he is going into the game. You game plan for him, you prep for him, and then you're just like, as the game's going, you're like, man, he got another layup or he got an offensive rebound, and then like, oh, we played great defense, and all of a sudden here comes this arm and he just grabs a rebound, and you're like, yeah, he played a good game. And then you get the stat sheet and he has 31 and 17. So I think that's the best compliment you can give him, is you think that he's just doing okay or he's just playing a good game, but he has 31 and 17.
So you're saying he's got a sneaky 31 and 17.
Yeah, which doesn't even sound right to say. But
right.
Again, a testament to how good of a player that I think he is to be able to have a quiet 31 and 17. He's that type of a player. So I don't know. When you can do that, I think it translates. Obviously, I think that he's going to make a ton of money playing the game if he wants to. I don't know how he burns. I don't know if his motor, if his mind, if his heart, what that is exactly for that next level. But if it is, with his attributes, his intangibles, they're looking for that type of stuff at the next level. You get hired in the NBA for a certain skill set. There's only a couple guys that get paid all the money to score the ball. So he wouldn't be going there to score the ball. He could be going there to rebound the ball, to give it to the guy that scores the ball. So depending upon an organization, what they may be looking for, I think he'll have a chance because they know and they pay attention to that stuff.
We had another guy from the OVC that carved out a pretty nice little NBA career from Morehead State, Kenneth Reid.
Yeah.
He was raw offensively. There's no way his offensive game is an NBA game at all. But that's not what they wanted.
Exactly.
They wanted his rebounding and his defense, and he turned himself into a serviceable offensive player in the NBA. Yeah. But there's a guy who had a specific skill set, and he maximized it and did become an NBA player.
Yeah, and also a guy like Fred VanVleet from Wichita State. I remember, scouting those games and playing against him all those years, and it's just like, he's so good in pick and roll basketball. Like, he never makes mistakes off of pick and roll, so he's going to have a chance. And everyone's, you're crazy. It's like, you got to understand, it's a different game. The NBA is a different game. You're hired for a certain skill set, as you mentioned, to do a particular job. And you knew he was tough, speaking of Fred, and the NBA turned to all pick and roll basketball, and he made perfect decisions and played a perfect floor game. So he thought he could have a chance, and obviously he's done very well for himself.
And for those who did not see, Fred VanVleet scored 50 points a couple of weeks ago in a game. That is the first undrafted player in history to score 50 points in an NBA game.
Yeah, he's from Rockford, Illinois. So I've kind of known him, watched him, recruited him a little bit all throughout his career. So to see him go undrafted, sign a big contract, win a championship, and again, he does what he can do.
How good were those Wichita State teams, man? They were good when he was there.
Yeah, and even Ron Baker, another guy that was a walk-on for Wichita State, turned himself into an NBA player. They were pretty good.
All right, we're going to talk with Sam Mcmahon. He is an assistant coach. Give us a good Sam Mcmahon story, a little background. First of all, how you guys ran across each other. So while you're telling that part of it, then you can come up with a good McMahon story.
So when I went to Missouri State to be an assistant for Paul Lusk, he was there as the director of operations, and then he left after just that one season to go to Missouri Southern State University with Coach Boshi. And so we always stayed in contact throughout all the years, and originally from Jeff City, played at Delaware, so he's just a basketball guy. Like he's just a basketball dude for a terrible grammar, but he's a family man. He's everything that you want in a program: fabric, substance, character, all those things. So I knew I wanted him in the pro. He's passionate about what he does, and so that's kind of where we crossed each other. And I guess probably the funniest story is just the other day we're in the game, EKU. So he had the EKU scout, and we left the timeout. And he told the guy to do something that I didn't know, so I was the last one to know. And then I'm yelling at the player, well, why? And he's like, well, Coach Sansa. So him and I had a nice little verbal exchange during the end of the game. And the game was in the bag, so we won and we played great, so it was all good after the game. But I told him after the game, I was like, Sam, I was about ready to put my fist through your face during that time. And he just, he sits over there with his legs crossed. He just shakes his head. It's part of it. Never easy. So it's just kind of Sam. He's just steady Eddie. He's just a salted eater type of guy.
All right, we're going to talk with Sam McMahon when we come back from this timeout. It's the Redhawks Coaches Show. We're at Wings, etc. in Cape on SEMO ESPN. Welcome back to the Redhawks Coaches Show from Wings, etc. in Cape Girardeau, Rare Tuesday edition. And, of course, the reason we're here on Tuesday is because the Redhawks had a 2 o'clock basketball game yesterday with Eastern Kentucky. They split with the Colonels, and we're going to be talking with Sam McMahon, the assistant coach for Coach Brad Korn, coming up in just a moment. We want to remind you that at Wings, etc., they have different specials for different days. Now, on Mondays, you get their award-winning jumbo wings for a special price, 69 cents. This is Tuesday. They've got specials every day. And if you are coming, make sure you take a look at their daily half-pound lunch specials. They start at just $7.99. They've got a terrific kids menu. We're going to be talking kids here with Sam McMahon here in just a moment. So they have family-friendly video games in the dining room. You'll see all of the televisions, has the great latest sports programming. You can watch college basketball here. I believe you can watch Redhawk basketball games, especially when they're on the road. You can watch Redhawks hoops games here, the St. Louis Blues. second place in the West Division. You watch Blues hockey here at Wings Etc. It is home of the Coaches Show. Wings Etc. Good food, great times. Let's welcome in Redhawks assistant coach Sam Mcmahon. How are you, and how have you been adjusting to Cape Girardeau, Missouri?
Oh, I'm great. This is a fantastic area to raise a family, and it's just a tremendous place.
Now, you've got 3 children, and the latest was born just before we played the first game of the season in Kansas City.
Yeah, we were actually going to go to Kansas City and to play UMKC, and we were shooting around, and then we were going to get on the bus. And my wife's water broke, and so I went to the hospital and had a baby girl.
And her name is?
Nova.
Nova.
Yes.
So, how long did it cross your mind when the water broke and she said, you better hang on? How long did it cross your mind, you know, I could wait a little while. Maybe I'll get on the bus, and if something happens, I can drive back. How fleeting was that thought in your mind?
I'm not going to lie, it did cross my mind. This is my third, so I'm a kind of a veteran at it. And I mentioned it to my wife, and she shot it down pretty quickly.
So I've got 3 children as well, and tell me if you heard the same thing. Did you hear from anybody? Okay, 2 kids is one thing. 3 is a total game changer. You don't think that it's going to be, but the third is going to be a game changer. How often did you hear that? Because I heard that 1,000 times.
Oh, I heard it 1,000 times, and they're all 1,000 are true. It's a madhouse in the McMahon household, but it's a blessing.
All right, now you've got 2 daughters and a son.
Yeah.
And tell everyone what your son's name is, because I've got a follow-up question.
Yes, so my son's name is Maverick. He is going to be 5 next month, and then my daughter's name's Eva, and then my youngest daughter's name is Nova. So they're all happy kids, tremendous to be around, and obviously love them so dearly.
So you've got Mav, Nov, and Eve.
Yes, all V's.
Okay, now, when I heard that your son's name was Maverick, the first thing that popped into my head, were you a fan of Top Gun?
I was a fan of Top Gun. It's not the reason why I named him that. I think Mav McMahon kind of rang a bell to me, and that's the only really name I got to choose. The other 2 were my wife's idea, and yeah, I was a fan of Top Gun, but this wasn't the reason why I named him Maverick. But he was actually Maverick for Halloween this past He
Halloween. Was Lieutenant Pete Mitchell.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
All right, now, COVID really threw a monkey wrench into a lot of things, but one thing it threw a monkey wrench into was Top Gun 2 was supposed to hit theaters this summer, so I don't know when the new release date is. Are you fired up about Top Gun 2?
Oh, yeah, we'll take Maverick there, and he'll check it out. He won't know what's going on, but he'll be running around the theater.
Yeah, talk to me, Goose. So you were a Delaware Blue Hen. Tell us about playing basketball at the University of Delaware.
Yes, I was a Blue Hen.
Now, was Joe Flacco?
Joe Flacco was there. He was actually in my same class, and tremendous experience. Learned a lot, both what to do and what not to do. We didn't have much success there. But I enjoyed every second of it. It was a great experience, and I got my degree from there, and hold that place dearly to my heart.
Okay, now what town in Delaware is the university located?
Newark, Delaware.
Newark, Delaware.
Yes.
And what's that close to? Any?
Philadelphia.
Okay.
So it's about 30 minutes from Philadelphia.
So you're not
it's all
far
kind
from
of in
Philly.
that. Yeah, it's all kind of right in that area with Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. It's kind of everything within a stone's throw.
Now, you grew up in Jefferson City, Missouri. I don't think people in this area understand about Philly basketball and the 5 schools that are in Philadelphia and how big hoops is in Philadelphia. I'm sure you found that out being as close to Philadelphia as you were.
Yes, big time. I mean, they take it really serious. We used to play LaSalle. Drexel was in our league. That wasn't in the Big 5, but I mean, it's high-level basketball, and they take it. They're dead serious about it.
All right, so your best moment in college at Delaware, whether it's a team moment, an individual moment, what was your best moment?
Well, I had a lot of great moments. We didn't.
Basketball related, Coach. It's a family show. Basketball related.
Yes. I would say when my dad came to visit me my junior year, he'd pick a weekend, and I happened to have two of my best games ever in front of him. So, and we won, and it was a really, really, really fun time.
Have you noticed that as a coach, when family members are present, you get a different maybe effort, maybe you get a different game, you get a different outcome? I know some coaches believe sometimes guys put too much pressure on themselves because their family is there. Other guys, man, you know, we're gonna pay hotel and travel expenses to keep the family on the road because every time they're there, he goes for 25.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, you know. You never know who's watching just in general, so it shouldn't really have a great effect if your parents are watching you or not. But it seems to always do that. I always played well when my dad came and watched, and we were 19 hours away, so he couldn't come every game. But when he picked a weekend, I seemed to have pretty good games.
Well, and you know, I mean, you think about it, okay, you're going to get max effort no matter what, whether the family is there or not. Okay, that sounds good, but it's just different, right?
It is different. It is different, and when your loved ones are watching, you want to give that extra effort, and yeah, it's different, but it seems to happen all the time.
All right, tell us what it was like growing up in Jefferson City. Talk about you playing basketball there, but back then, and they're not the football powerhouse that they used to be.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking back when you were there, were they was that their heyday, Jeff City? Because they went through a stretch there where they were the best program in the state of Missouri.
Yeah, so when I was growing up in middle school, I'd always go to the games because it was just like a huge deal in the town. And that's when, like, Justin Smith made the NFL, Justin Gage, that's when they were on that team. Now, after they left, it kind of declined. And I wanted to go play football. I played football throughout middle school. Then I got in high school, and I made the varsity team as a freshman for basketball. And so I essentially quit football and just focused on basketball. And it's a tremendous place to go to school. They're splitting the high schools up now, so it's not as big. But I loved every second of it. They always talk about J Pride and Jeff City High School, and I definitely have it.
They're the Blue Jays, right?
Jays, just
the Jays.
Yeah, Jays,
Okay.
Jaybirds. Yep.
The Jefferson City Jays. So, best moment or moments when you were playing for Jeff City?
Well, we made the Final Four my junior year, and funny story about it. So we make the Final Four. Obviously, it's a great feat, and then we played Vashon High School, which was the #1 team in the country in the semifinals to get to the finals. So,
now, was Floyd Irons still there at that time?
Yes, he was.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so we're going in, and I truly believed like we could beat them, right? And
they have Jimmy McKinney back there.
Jimmy McKinney,
Yep.
Nick Kern, Dwayne Polk, and all those guys. And so we're all fired up. The whole town thinks we can win, and we get out there, and they put that press on us. We got down 30-2, and that baby was over. But it was a great experience just to be there and to make it that far, and it was the largest school class, so it was fun.
Yeah, they've had a lot of success there. Although when Poplar Bluff took them out with the Hansbrough brothers,
yes,
they had to beat Vashon to win the state championship.
Yes.
So they got their comeuppance.
Yes, they did. Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So how did you meet Coach Korn? He mentioned that you guys crossed paths at Missouri State. Tell us about the first time that you met Coach Korn.
Yeah, so he came and we worked together at Missouri State for a year. And so I was a director of basketball operations, and then he came on staff as an assistant. So I worked together and created a great relationship with him. And then we kind of went our separate ways. I went to Missouri Southern for 6 years, and he eventually went to K-State, and then we kind of circled back once he got this job, and very thankful for this opportunity.
Explain the grind when you are a volunteer assistant coach at Division I. First of all, the grind. How do you make ends meet, and how much sacrifice has to be done? Because I don't think the average fan sees a guy sitting there maybe in a suit or dressed with the other coaches and things. They have no idea what goes on behind the scenes.
Yes. It was a challenging year. I lived in my sister's basement, and I donated plasma for an extra check, and just kind of made ends meet. I substitute taught whenever I could. So yeah, I loved the game, and I wanted to be on the Division I level. So I told Conzo Martin that I'd volunteer for a year. So we made it work. I actually met my wife during that time. So she didn't marry me for my money.
Hi, my name's Sam. I live in my sister's basement.
Yes,
that's a great pickup line.
Yes. So I know she married me for my good looks, I guess, right?
So you get the call from Coach Korn that he is going to take over at Southeast Missouri State. Take us through that. And did you reach out to him? Did he reach out to you? How did that go?
Yeah, I actually reached out to him. I was the associate head coach at Missouri Southern, and I was there for 6 years. We had a lot of success, and it was just time to take that next step in my career. And I reached out to him, and obviously he's got 1,000 people trying to get in contact with him when he gets a job. So we talked a couple days later, and we made it work.
So your recruiting ties, how different is it recruiting at Missouri Southern, the type of athlete that you're realistically going to bring to Missouri Southern, and then recruiting Division I athletes?
Yeah, it's different. I think the skill level, actual shooting and obviously handling the ball is similar, but just guys are bigger and faster at this level, so you got to find the better athletes. But it's similar. I've been working in Missouri for 12 years now at 3 different schools, or 4 different schools really, and so I've got a lot of connections around the state, and I know what to look for.
And recruiting the city of St. Louis, I mean, that is absolutely key if you're a Division I school here in the state of Missouri.
Yes, definitely. And I've always thought SEMO was kind of a diamond in the rough, just with the town and the campus and the arena. And if you get the right people, you can win. I feel we're going to do that.
All right, you probably have to win at least one more game to get in. I don't know the math, maybe not, but 8 wins probably is going to get you into that OVC tournament. What is critical here as you go into these final 2 games against teams that are trying to get that spot from you?
Yes, yeah. It's you got to take it one game at a time. We're excited for this opportunity, and we're going to make the most out of it.
All right, your best Brad Korn story.
Oh. Besides, there's a lot of stories I can't say on air.
Okay, well, we need a good one though.
I would say him. Me and him getting after it on the bench is a good one. Him getting after it in practice is saying a few choice words. I got a couple good stories about that, but there's nothing really specific. But I just know he's a great guy, a tremendous coach, and he's going to bring this program to new heights.
All right, and describe to everyone how much Brad Korn hates wearing face masks.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I want to be politically correct, but he definitely doesn't love face masks.
Oh, I know he hates
it. And another story about Brad Korn, he loves to really heckle our assistant coach, Dustin Yoder, on the golf course.
I see.
And I enjoy watching it go down.
You enjoy the golf course heckling.
Yeah, and Dustin, he definitely gets upset about it.
I mean, here's a guy.
To say the least.
Here's a guy, an elite guy. I mean, he's got to get to custom-made golf clubs.
He's a really good golfer, and he's a really good trash talker, too.
Coach, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it. Best of luck in these final 2 games, and let's get that ticket punch to Evansville.
We're excited for it. Thank you so much.
All right. That's Coach Sam McMahon. Back for a final word from Coach Korn after we take this final timeout. It's the Redhawks Coaches Show from Wings, Etc. head to Eastern Illinois Thursday and then SIU Edwardsville on Saturday. There are 3 teams vying for 2 final spots, the 7 and the 8 spot in the OVC. Right now, you're in if the season ended today, but it doesn't end today. And most likely, you're going to have to win at least. I know you want to win them both, but you probably, I mean, I'm sure you've done the math 1,000 times. You probably have to win one of these games, right?
Yeah, I would think so. And actually, you can even throw Martin into the mix because if they go 2-0, they'll have 7 wins, and that obviously means that they beat Eastern and SIUE because that's who they're obviously playing the same team. So you can throw them in the mix. So you really got 4 teams for 2 spots, depending upon how all the tie break. Who knows what the records end up being. But again, as we said on the onset, Eric, it's just we've put ourselves in this position, and I think that our guys are excited about that opportunity. If we can harness in the way we played against Austin P and EKU on Saturday, anything's possible. But again, if we think we're just going to show up and win because we did the last time, that's not going to happen, especially on the road. Everybody playing for the same thing. You can't. There's no postseason if you don't get in the conference tournament. And so I think everybody knows that for all these teams that are trying to get in there. So again, right where you want to be. March Madness. It's what it's all about. And again, I'm extremely proud of our guys for putting themselves in this position. I obviously probably a lot of even in the coaches in this league who picked us last never would have thought that we'd have been in this position. So give our kids a ton of credit for getting to that point, and now we've got to go and it's kind of that old saying, you just got the hay's in the barn, and we've got to go and there's no secrets to it. You got to go and play, and you got to play tough and play smart and play the right way, and you can't get caught up in one play, one moment can't be the reason why. You got to make sure you take care of everything on the front end to make that a reality. And
when you play on the road, sometimes you face raucous environments. I don't know that that's going to be the case now. I know they've opened some things up. They're playing high school basketball now in Illinois. I don't know if they're letting fans in. They haven't been in the state of Illinois, and both of these teams play in Illinois. So I don't know if you're going to be facing fans, but you're not going to be facing what you'd normally face if it wasn't for COVID. So that's a variable.
Yeah, it is. And, again, for us in our administration and our fans and the Show Me Center staff, to be able to have the environment that we had this year, Eric, I mean, I'd be remiss if you didn't touch on that, and just thank everybody for coming and partaking in that in a year that wasn't normal for anybody, and especially for our team and just fans and just in general, to be able to have that game day atmosphere, cheerleaders, bands, students, even though it was on a lower level or lower scale just with COVID and everything, to be able to have that experience, we don't have that anywhere else. And I thought Saturday was about as electric as it can get during these times. So I just really appreciative of our administration to be able to give us that environment in this type of a year.
Thursday, 7:30 at Eastern Illinois. Saturday, 5 o'clock at SIU Edwardsville. Coach, we certainly hope that the ticket gets punched here so we can head to Evansville and play some OVC postseason basketball. Thanks so much for your time. We'll see you on the road.
All right, you got it. Thank you.
That's Coach Brad Korn. Thanks to Coach Sam McMahon for his time a little bit earlier. The Redhawks will play a doubleheader, and it's going to be 4:30 Friday for the women. Men play at 7, or I should say Thursday, and then on Saturday, 2 o'clock for the women, 5 o'clock for the men. We've got the Max Kellerman Show coming up on ESPN Radio. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, everybody. So long from the home of the